This is Red Letters Rewind. Portal recruiting, NIL, tampering, three words that have completely changed college football. And honestly, not everyone agrees on where the lines even lie anymore. Today, we're doing a true first listen. I've seen press conferences, but I haven't seen this one where Dabo Swinney takes on the idea of tampering as it comes to NIL and the transfer portal. I'm going to play the clip, kind of pause it along the way. I know it's something different for the podcast, but I want to have an honest reaction of Dabo Swinney's press conference talking about NIL. Let's rewind this. Guys, let's hit play on this and let's listen.
Obviously, we had a very public situation with our portal signee that signed with Clemson, moved to Clemson, went to class, trained, and now he's no longer at Clemson. So I know y'all have heard a lot about that. My objective today is to just provide a little bit of clarity, a little bit of context as to what happened with this situation. So first of all, we did everything right. Kid goes in the portal. We reach out. He's interested. Comes and visits Clemson. Says this is where he wants to go. And we sign him. He moves to Clemson. Again, rents an apartment, buys a car, goes to class for a week, trains, team meeting, position meetings, writes out his goals for the semester, like full-blown, let's Clemson student. Like, we're rolling.
So yeah, I'm not exactly sure which athlete he's talking about at this point, but we'll give a little bit of background. So Dabo Swinney, the head coach at Clemson, he's won a national title, and since then, everything's changed with the NIL and the transfer portal. He's been very public about his stance on the transfer portal. He takes a very hard line that he builds his recruiting based on who wants to come to Clemson, and he kind of has taken a back seat to the transfer portal era as opposed to other coaches who are rebuilding every year. So Dabo has come public saying that he basically just uses the transfer portal as the transfers have always had. So if you leave your school and you want to come to Clemson, that's fine, and then you can come to Clemson. Apparently, there's more to this story, though. Let's listen.
And and then all of a sudden, not here anymore. So how did we get here? Well, Sunday, January the 4th, Jordan Sorrells had his first conversation with Ryan Williams, the agent. And on Monday, January the 5th, at 8:30, Luke Farrelly, he showed up here at Clemson with his dad for his official visit. And they.
All right, so another thing about the transfer portal era and NIL, agents. That's a whole podcast episode on agents, and we can get into that. If you'd like to hear about agents, leave me a comment down below, and we can get into that on another episode. So you have Sorrells, who comes to Clemson, then an agent gets involved somehow. So let's continue to listen.
They came over to my house a little after 9 or so that night, okay? So I had a chance to meet with them for the very first time, and it was just to get to know each other right there at the beginning, and had a good conversation. My first question was, "Hey, how was?" They had just come in off of Ole Miss visit. I said, "How was the visit?" And his dad said, "Not good." Said it was a mess. It was unorganized. It was chaos. The building was a mess. Nobody knew what was going on, and I was like, well. Look forward to y'all seeing Clemson tomorrow. We're going to be organized and structured, and so just kind of had some chit chat that night, and then tomorrow, the next day on Tuesday, January the 6th, he had his visit on campus at 2:30. Ryan Williams, the agent, Luke, the player, and his dad, they verbally accepted the terms of the offer, and they made a commitment to Clemson. Everybody high-fived it. Everybody's excited. We got our linebacker. We were going to take one linebacker. We're going to take one. So we got our linebacker. We canceled all the visits of all the other guys that we were going to schedule to come in throughout the rest of the week because we're done. We were taking one. We've made our commitment. He signed.
All right, so you have this agent, Luke, I've missed his name, and his dad have accepted the terms of NIL. Basically, what that means is um, some payment information, maybe some other things related to housing, and what the expectations are in the NIL, which means probably speaking for the school at certain events and things like that. So, anyway, there's an agreement made. Unfortunately, in the NIL era, contracts are not binding, and I think that that's probably where we're going in this if I had to guess about what's going on here. So Sorrells and Luke were teammates at Ole Miss. Sorrells has already started classes, and then Luke is on an official visit.
All right, so or the next day, Wednesday, that was 2:30 at 3:15. Luke and his dad left town to go back to California. Then Wednesday, January 7th at 11 a.m., Luke signed his financial aid agreement with Clemson. And then Sunday, January the 11th, he moved to Clemson. Again, rents an apartment, buys a car, goes to class for a week. He's in training for a week, team meeting, position meeting, all that. All right? And then
So we have two players, both from Ole Miss, have started the Clemson term in January. So they're already in classes. I guess that probably means very little into the world of today's college football. But these guys are at school, signed financial aid agreements, and so what happens next?
Then on Wednesday, January 14th at 9:49 p.m., the agent Ryan Williams calls Jordan Sorrells. And during that conversation, Ryan conveys that Ole Miss has been coming hard after Luke. Sorrells confirmed, he went with the agent, he said, "Are you talking about the same Luke that's been enrolled at Clemson, that's been in class, that's moved here, that signed with Clemson?" And the agent assured him, yes, the same one. But he also assured Jordan Sorrells that Luke had no intention of leaving Clemson, but just thought y'all should be in the loop and check up on him tomorrow. So Thursday, January 15th at 11:45 a.m., just this past Thursday, Jordan came to me, and he told me about the conversation that he had the night before with the agent at 9:49. And so I told Sorrells, I directed Sorrells, "Hey, you reach," I don't know, I said, "Who's their GM?" He said his name is Austin Thomas. I said, "Will you reach out to their GM?" He said he knows him. And I said, "Listen, this guy has been a head coach for 4 weeks." I said, "You reach out to the GM. I'm going to give him some grace. And you let him know that we know what's going on, all right? And if he doesn't cease communication, I'm going to turn him in."
All right, so here's the deal. So Ole Miss has had a coaching change. As part of that coaching change, the GM he's talking about is the general manager for Ole Miss's recruiting. So basically, Dabo is telling one player who has had communications with an agent to tell Ole Miss's GM to cut it out, or he's going to report them to the NCAA.
And so I really thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. So after that, that was 11:45. At 12:10, Jordan communicated to Austin Thomas via text because he was unable to reach him on the phone. And just a few minutes later, at 12:14, they both connected on the phone. The Ole Miss GM, Austin Thomas, and Jordan reiterated our stance one more time. The GM assured Jordan that he had communicated to the agent that he wanted no part of this and that his relationship with Jordan was more important to him than Luke Farrelly, but that Pete Golding just does what he does. Quote.
All right, so now we have a GM of a program saying that Ole Miss's new coach, Pete Golding, is kind of running things as it relates to how communication is happening in the transfer portal.
Unquote. So at 1:30, Sorrells met with Luke face-to-face in his office. And Luke communicated to Jordan and to Ben Boulware that Pete texted him on Wednesday morning, the head coach at Ole Miss, when he was in his 8 a.m. class. And he said the text message said, "I know you're signed. What's the buyout?" And he also, Luke said that Coach Golding also texted him a picture of a $1 million contract. Luke also mentioned to Jordan and to Ben that Coach Golding had Trinidad Chambliss call him from his phone, and that Coach Golding was there continuing to talk on his phone to push him to re-enter the transfer portal.
So Coach Golding at Ole Miss uses Trinidad Chambliss, who is Ole Miss's quarterback, who's trying to get another year of eligibility. So it wouldn't show up on Pete Golding's phone, but on Trinidad's phone, but Coach Golding was there.
He also said that Jackson Dart had reached out and called him.
Former Ole Miss quarterback.
But Luke again assured Jordan that he had no intention of leaving. And Jordan kept me in the loop and told me the same thing. So we had a staff meeting on Friday morning, January the 16th, the last day of the portal. At 11:20, Luke called Ben Boulware and told him that Mississippi had reached out again, even though I had kind of let him know the day before, had reached out again, and they had not only reached out, but they had upped and doubled their offer. But Luke told Ben, "Hey, we're good." And so Ben told Luke to come to the office and see Sorrells and Coach Swinney and let them know, hey, everything is okay. So,
all right, so here we are. I'm going to swap camera angles real quick. So here we are. Here's kind of the layout of the story. You have Dabo, who has talked via their general manager or via an agent to the general manager to cut it out, to stop doing what you're doing, to be up front with everybody. You have a player that's transferred already. He's already enrolled in school. The transfer portal is about to close, and now the player is in a meeting with Dabo and another coach, and Sorrells, I believe, is a player or a coach. And so that's where we are right now.
When that was over, Ben then texted Jordan Sorrells, and he let him know that Ole Miss had raised its offer to 2 years, $2 million. And again, that he had told Luke to come over and see us and let us know that everything is good. So at 11:57, so 11:20, Luke called Ben. 11:22, he texted Jordan this. At 11:57, Sorrell spoke with the agent Ryan Williams about the situation once again. The agent confirmed that head coach Pete Golding had continued to communicate with Luke and had raised the offer once again.
And this was after Luke had already told the coach no. So he said, "No, I'm not interested." That's the story he told Dabo, at least. That no, he's not interested. And now they've upped the offer. It's the same amount of money apparently, but for a second year, which would be $2 million. But as we know, again, contracts aren't binding or anything in NIL. So if he gets that $2 million up front, then that's $2 million. He can leave in 1 year if he wants to.
Jordan asked to have Luke to give us the text messages that he had received from Coach Golding, but the agent was hesitant to do that because he didn't want to burn any bridges with Ole Miss, as you never know what will happen down the road. However, the agent communicated that if we were to add a second year at $1 million to the already agreed upon deal with Luke, then they would gladly give us whatever we need in order to turn Ole Miss in. Which Jordan appropriately said, "No, we're not doing that." He also communicated that Ole Miss Assistant Director of Player Personnel, I guess it's J-A-I-C-H-O-U-D-A-R-Y, Shortery, I'm not sure, but the Assistant Director of Player Personnel was pushing to set up a Zoom call with them to discuss the details of their contract offer. So that was at 11:57, talking to the agent. At 12:30, Sorrells met Luke out in the parking lot outside our football facility, and Luke communicated that he was coming to assure him and Coach Swinney that he wasn't going anywhere. I was not in the building. Jordan called me to let me know what Luke said and for me to reach out to him. I called Luke and didn't get an answer. I'm back at work. I'm in my office. Everything's good. 4:14, Jordan Sorrells comes to see me. He had gotten a call from compliance telling him that Luke is in our compliance office trying to request to re-enter the transfer portal. So Jordan let me know, he let Tom Allen know, called Luke, no answer. At 4:19, Jordan called the agent Ryan Williams again to alert him that Luke had requested to enter the portal. He responded via text to let him know that he was flying. Sorrells texted, Luke just reached out to our compliance and requested to go in the portal.
On the
What
last
the heck
day.
is going on? The agent's response was, oh, bleep. Let me try and find out. At 4:40, Sorrells and Coach Allen arrived at Luke's apartment. Luke was in the driveway when they got there. His immediate response was, I'm going to Ole Miss. Coach Allen and Jordan spent some time talking to him, and when they departed, he just said, hey, I need to clear my head. At 5:39, Jordan spoke with the Ole Miss GM, Austin Thomas, again to let him know that we knew all that was going on and that we were going to pursue all options to hold them accountable for tampering. And then at 7:20, after a phone call with Tom Allen and Ben Boulware, Luke affirmed his plan to enter the transfer portal, and then he called me and told me the same thing. Once I got word of all this at 4:15 that he was going over there trying to go in the portal, I immediately called our AD, Graham Neff. I also called Commissioner Phillips. He also called the SEC commissioner and others. So, you know, this is obviously a crazy time. We turned everything in to the NCAA. And I'm just going to say this. This is like there's tampering and then there's blatant tampering. You know, tampering 101 is when you're talking to kids who aren't in the portal. Tampering 201 is when you've already negotiated the deal with the kids not in the portal. Tampering 301 is when you got a kid who's gone in the portal, signed somewhere, moved there, gone to classes, and you're texting them while they're in class. That's like a whole nother level of tampering.
So let's talk a little bit about Dabo Swinney again. You can tell by Dabo's voice that he's pretty fired up about this. This is one kid. I say kid. I use the term kid loosely. I assume he has at least 2 years left of eligibility, so he's probably 20 years old. He has let an agent, and probably more than one agent if the story is correct, and a head coach of another program get in his ear, make promises that he probably cannot keep. And Dabo has been blatantly against this era of football and the way it's set up. Unfortunately, the NCAA has no teeth, and they've chosen to take a back seat to everything. If they would have taken a harder line, we wouldn't be where we are today. Maybe, you know, there's rumors of a super conference and things like that. At the end of the day, though, good guys like Dabo are being left in the dust. And if you like the way college football is today, you don't really care. Maybe you laugh at Dabo for going on this rant. It's a total of almost 20 minutes, so we're about a little over halfway through this right now. Just wanted to stop and give an update. So that's where we are. Dabo's pretty upset about the situation. Not only did he lose the player, it's his last day. There's nobody else going in the portal. Everything's settled at this point. And so Dabo's left kind of out of it and not happy about the way that Ole Miss is running their program. Pete Golding learned from Lane Kiffin, and we all know about Lane Kiffin and the saga as it related to Ole Miss and LSU. Let's continue.
And it's total hypocrisy, because all this is going on while they, on the other side, are trying to fight their defensive end from going in the portal. They have accused publicly others of tampering with their roster and their players while they are over here tampering. All right, so this is just a really sad state of affairs, and it's, to me, we have a broken system. And if there are no consequences for tampering, then we have no rules and we have no governance. It's really just that simple, okay? This is not, let me be very clear, this is not about a linebacker at Clemson.
Exactly, it's one player.
I don't, listen, I feel sorry for I think it's a symptom of a system that you have a kid that I meet at 9:30 and he's, signing the next day. Like, I feel sorry for the young man, to be honest with you. I blame the adults. And again, if you want to have adult world, then there needs to be adult consequences, okay? So, but this is not about a linebacker at Clemson. And I don't want anyone on our team that doesn't want to be here. I would never want that.
Exactly.
All right? But let me tell you what it is about. It's about the next kid. And it's about the next kid. And it's about the message that is being sent if this blatant tampering is allowed to happen without any consequences.
So let's take it farther than tampering. Tampering is just another word for ethics. And to me, that's what it boils down to. Are you teaching these kids how to live with character and integrity? The way the system is right now, the answer to that is undoubtedly no. The system right now is built on going behind people's back, tampering. It's built on money to the highest bidder. It's built on sports betting. It's built on get away what you can get away with. It's about upping the other person. And that's not what college athletics should be about. And I'm going to be honest, it's not what athletics should be about.
This is about protecting our program. This is about college. It's about the next kid. And it's about the next kid. And it's about the message that is being sent if this blatant tampering is allowed to happen without any consequences. This is about protecting our program. This is about college football. That's what this is about. I stay in my lane most of the time. I've seen a lot of things in my days, and I'm like, hey, man, you just do whatever you're going to do. But here's what I'm going to do. I've always just kind of stayed in my lane and handled my business. And I've stayed focused on Clemson. But I am not going to let someone just flat out tamper with my program. If you tamper with my players, I'm going to turn you in. It's just that simple.
As he should.
And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've done, maybe this isn't tampering. I don't know. Maybe I just need to get some clarification on what tampering is. But I understood tampering to be if someone is signed and in classes and not in the portal, because he's not in the portal, he had to re-enter the portal, then that's the definition of tampering. So if it,
which is why Pete Golding went through the other player, because players can call each other all day. But because Pete Golding was with Trinidad Chambliss at that point, this tampering, let's face it, it's covering up of evidence. It's a lot of other things. And unfortunately, again, the NCAA has no teeth.
The portal, he had to re-enter the portal, then that's the definition of tampering. So if it's not, then my apologies. But that's what I see as tampering. So there's a lot more I could say, but I'm going to let the NCAA handle this, and I'm going to let them do their job. And I'll say this. This shouldn't be a 3-year or a 3-month investigation. This might take 3 days. They're either going to tell the truth or they're going to lie. It's one of the two.
And even if they tell the truth,
all you got to do is get the phone. This is not complicated. This is very simple. And let me make this clear, too. I'm not out to get anybody fired. That's not my objective in this. I'm not out to get anybody fired, but there has to be accountability and consequences for this type of behavior and total disregard for the rules. If this happened in the NFL, which is an actual league with rules, they would be fined. They would take draft picks. They, hit the cap, whatever. Again, I'm not trying to get anybody fired. I just want accountability, and there should be consequences for a total disregard for the rules. And this is such a terrible example. It's a terrible example for young coaches in this profession.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, this is crazy. To me, this situation is like having an affair on your honeymoon. That's basically what we're dealing with. And I know for a fact that this is happening at other places. Because you know why? Because I've had a bunch of coaches over the last week that have reached out to me. And they're going, well, let me tell you what's happened to me. Let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you my story. I've had a lot of people reach out with their stories. And so I want to challenge all of those coaches that have reached out to me.
All right, real quick. So, yeah, the issue is why they reach out and talk to Dabo is because Dabo's laid the foundation. Dabo, from the beginning, has talked about being above board. Now, what these other coaches risk by not going publicly themselves. So they risk that next player that enters the portal that's a great player, or maybe the next really good high school player. What they risk is that agent or those agents and those other coaches in their ear saying, if things don't work out and you go and play for Clemson, Dabo's going to put a guilt trip on you. He's not going to let you transfer. He's going to hold this over your head. They're going to negatively recruit against other programs like they are against Dabo right now. So just to use an example, if Kalen DeBoer comes out and says, you know what, Pete Golding, Lane Kiffin, they've been in my linebacker's ear. He does no interest in transferring, but they're in his ear trying to get him to transfer. And, we're talking to him, trying to keep him. If he goes public and says those kind of things, then that next linebacker that's coming through the system is going to be like, I don't really want all my dirty laundry put out there. So I'm not even going to talk to Alabama. I'm not even going to talk to Kalen DeBoer. That's what he's fighting against. And until everybody stands up with integrity, then this is the situation we're in.
I want to challenge all of them. You need to step up and call it out.
They do.
Otherwise, don't complain. You either step up and you be an example to young coaches in this profession and be people of integrity, or just shut your mouth and don't complain again.
Exactly.
That's what I would say to all the coaches out there. Because I know this has happened. And we're never going to get this under control until we start having some consequences. We're just not. It's just that simple. And listen, one of the responses that came out of Mississippi was this right here. Well, people are calling and texting our guys. That was the response. Well, let me tell you what I know. 2 wrongs don't make a right. That's what I know. And we have a saying in our team room that says right is right even if nobody does it. And wrong is wrong even if everybody does it.
Yes.
Okay? And listen, man, my win-loss record, I may never win another game. My win-loss record is set. This is about this profession. This is about college football. All right? So that's what happened. That's where we are. This is crazy. And it's just another reason why we need change. You can't even sign a guy and go to class and work out and have meetings and even know that that's your roster. You can't sign with the Browns and practice a week, and then the Dolphins call you and say, hey, we're going to give you a little more money, and you say, see you, boys, and you go play for the Dolphins. That's not the real world. And so it's total chaos. We have to fix this chaos that's going on in college football. So that's what happened. That's where we are. And to add a little more context, I'm going to pass it off to our AD, Graham Neff, to speak on it a little further.
All right. Let's pause it right there. Here's what I keep coming back to when I see conversations like this. Proverbs 11:1 says, "A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight." Now, whether you agree with Dabo or not, that's not the issue. Whether or not you're a Clemson fan or an Alabama fan or an LSU fan or an Ole Miss fan or a Mississippi State fan or a USC fan, that's not the issue. Players deserve freedom, but coaches deserve fairness. The game, it deserves integrity. When a system loses balance, people start looking for loopholes instead of doing what's right. It's really a sad state of affairs when I start looking at a game that I love, a game that I grew up cheering for a team, like watching other games, to where I'm thinking about maybe, do I even want to go to a game this fall? The challenge just isn't just about fixing the portal, though. It's about deciding value. It's about living with character and integrity, inside the game and outside the game. So that's the rewind for today. I'd love to hear what you think about this new format. Drop me a comment, send me a line, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, do all those things. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next time on Red Letters Rewind.